Today, we're finally starting to cover the 2026 NFL draft, and that's going to start with the wide receiver rankings. I have gone through, I think it's 23 wide receivers or 22 wide receivers and given them final complete grades. There's still maybe a few more that could sneak into the back of this top 15, but right now I haven't found them and I haven't had time to get back to them. I covered in the video last week that we're getting back into this and I'm behind, so everything's going to be late this year. I quit YouTube for a little while, but I'm back and I'm excited to get talking about this draft class. And although we're not going to have a ton of info out beforehand, I do have a website down below that you can visit. It's sites.google.com/JDF Draft Hub. If you want, the link will be down in the description. You can just click that, it'll take you over and it'll give you access to all my rankings. It's completely free, nothing's behind a paywall at all. I'm going to probably do a mock draft over on there that I'll post maybe the day before the draft. I don't know if I'll get a video out just because I don't want to put it up here on YouTube because I will admit it's not going to be as informed as I would like because I'm behind rewatching all these prospects. I have grades that I put on them during the season, but like grades fluctuate throughout the year and I look at where I have a player, I watch a game and then I adjust them and I kind of do my grades like that as I get film in. And then at the end of the year, like this, which is what I just did with the receivers, I go through and I watch every player that I can think of or that I want to watch back to back to back to back to back. And it allows me to go through and better rank them and put final grades on them. And plus, you always have the combine info, which I do believe is helpful, but not the most important thing in the world. But without further ado, like I said, you can hit that down in the comments. It'll take you over there. The screens you'll see that I'm going to be partially covering, you'll be able to check out the full page over there as we go through this wide receiver rankings. First up, we're going to hit number 15, and that's Elijah Sherratt, the wide receiver out of Indiana. He's 6'2.5", 210 pounds, good hand size. Don't really have any testing on him for the combine. He's 23 years old, or he will be at the start of next season, which is how I did the age. He's somebody that I thought I was going to be higher on until I actually started watching film. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I was certain he was going to be a top two guy, like a top 2 round guy for me. And then as I watched the film and stacked him, I was just like, unfortunately, he's got a 72.5 grade. And that puts him basically firmly in the middle of the 3rd round area, is where I view his best like draft scenario where I rank him right now. What I liked about him is he has strong hands. I think he handles contact well throughout the route. So like as I have it listed here on the pros so you can read along, but like as people are hitting him and bumping him, he's able to recover, keep himself on time and on schedule, and be able to do a really good job of still getting to his spots and not being redirected, which is an issue with the next guy we'll talk about. But for some reason, man, I can't quit him. He also has really good catch in traffic. And I mean, it shows up a lot on his back shoulder throws. Like he is great at getting himself open late, using his hands to create some separation and make them catches. The problem is he doesn't get natural separation, and I don't think he really has great speed. So I struggled with him. Like he reminds me, and I know it's probably not like a perfect comp, but he reminds me a little bit of Pat Bryant last year out of Illinois that Denver ended up taking in the 3rd round. And last year I was much lower on Pat Bryant. I just didn't think it would work in the NFL. I think Surratt's maybe a little bit faster and not quite as physical, but I kind of have like a similar feeling. And this year I decided to bump his grade up and go, maybe there is a world for the players like this to work. Initially, I was, like I said, I wanted to be higher on him, and then I watched film, and then I struggled. But I don't think he's a day 3 guy. I do believe he's a day 2 guy. And I think he'd be a good receiver. He might need to play in the slot, possibly. Like he just doesn't get the separation, but he could be a power slot. And I think he's just a comfort player for a quarterback. Like he's good at slants. He's good at a lot of little underneath and easier routes. I think his route tree is a little limited right now, but I'm a fan of Elijah Surratt. And like I said, I have him in the middle of the 3rd round, so I'm not super low on him, but I guess I thought I'd be a little higher on him, but he's a good player overall. Let's go ahead and move on to number 14 on our list, and that's going to be Jacoby Lane, the wide receiver out of USC. He's going to be 22 when the season starts. He's 6'4", 200 pounds. Great arm length, great hands, really good 40 time, 10-yard splits, good vertical. Like he's explosive. Now, I'm going to start with the cons. And I know that I'm higher on this player, I think, than a lot of people. Like I have a 73.5, which is, I believe, just barely ahead of or 1 point ahead of Surratt, which puts him more towards the top of the third round. He's a projection, and I know that. But I can't help myself. I watch him play and he gets me excited and I see potential in there. Like I know right now strength's a major issue. It's within routes. He gets bumped off routes, completely tossed aside at times. He has a hard time at the catch point sometimes. I know that's something that's not going to play well in the NFL, but I do think he is somebody who's going to be able to develop further. And I think if you put him in the slot and move him a little bit and maybe make it to where it's harder to get your hands on him, I think he could be a big slot and be a really good player. Like, I just maybe he is not that X prototype like people think he will be, but I think he's the type of guy that if he can get that ball in his hands, got good hands when he's not being hit, which isn't great for going over the middle, but I think you can move him and create that separation for him to win down the field because he does have good speed and long strides. He'll get separation and as long as you can keep the receiver's hands off of him. And I think it would make sense to use him like that. So that way you can try to hide a little bit of that lack of strength. You know, the hope is, of course, he's going to be able to get stronger. It's just, I'm betting on him. Maybe a lot of people have quit him and have him on day three. I haven't quit him yet. And the NFL might prove to be right on this. And I'm not being crazy aggressive, but I would certainly take him here. Normally, I will say I rewatch 4 games. I only rewatch 2 games on all these receivers. Maybe I missed something in my rewatch, but I dropped his grade a little bit from where I had it initially, and I still feel pretty confident where I have him ranked. And I still really like the player. Now, next up on our list here at number 13, we got Zachariah Branch, the wide receiver from Georgia. He's going to be 22 years old, at the start of next season. The biggest issue with him, he's small. He's 5'9, 177 pounds, doesn't have a great catch radius, smaller hands, but he's explosive. He has, a 4.35 40 time, which is awesome at his size. I mean, it's awesome at any size, but you're not running into the Tez Johnson problem where like he looks faster than he is, but he's a small guy, so he has smaller strides and his 40 times not matching up. Like he's just a legit athlete, and I really like that about Zach Branch. Now, I will say right off the rip, didn't like how Georgia utilized him last year. I think at USC they used him more as a traditional receiver, and I think at Georgia they really kind of just limited him and made him a bit of a gadget player. I didn't like that. I don't think it was fair to him. I don't think it's the best way to use him going forward. I think he can develop further. I think he showed flashes at USC. And there's a little bit of that still in there of me looking back at that old tape and saying there's more than Georgia put on tape for him. However, he is still raw as a route runner. He needs work. He's a slot only. He's not going to win on the outside. He does let the ball get in on him at times, and he has to catch it with his body, which can lead to drops and just makes you question a little bit on like ball tracking skills. But he's fast, he's twitchy. He does show a pretty good job, like if he does get the ball down the field, tracking it and being able to catch it and adjust. But I think early in his career, he may be best served being a little bit of that gimmick role like he was at Georgia, where you get the ball in his hands and let him create after. But I do believe he has more in him, which is why I ranked him a little bit higher than I don't know. I feel like consensus has gotten pretty high on him, but I have a 73.5 grade. Once again, like I said, that means not top of the third round, but towards the top. So you're talking probably top 75, top 80 ish is about where I have him ranked. But I see upside in him, and I think he's a good player who's going to be able to develop further. As even if he's just that little gadget player, he's just going to be a threat. And he's going to be useful. And I think he'll be a good kick returner and stuff in the league or punt returner. So I think he just has value, despite there being the obvious red flags. Now, moving on to number 12, Dazon Stribling out of Ole Miss. He is one of the last players I actually got to, and I almost didn't have his tape. Yeah, I was going to tape this, and it's why it's coming out later than Friday, which is when I planned on having it out. But I needed to watch Stribling. I've been hearing a lot of hype about him, and I hadn't watched him at all, so I had to do all 4 games on him. So he probably has one of the more thorough evaluations in this, and I didn't really watch a ton of his tape earlier in the year. I'll admit that. I remember him some from Oklahoma State and his time there, but he's a 23-year-old. I really liked him. It kind of surprised me how much I liked him for somebody that I hadn't paid attention to and I didn't think was going to be anything more than day 3, and I just hadn't done a ton of film work on him. I really liked him. 6'2 and an eighth, 207 pounds, 10-inch hands, 4.36, 40-yard dash at that size is incredible, man. A 1.53 10-yard split, 36-inch vertical, 10.7 broad jump. He's explosive. He is somebody that certainly has a ton of potential. And I gave him a 74 grade, which does mean top of the third round. I could see him also, it's like late two, early three, but technically it's a top of the third round grade. A lot of that has to do with age, was one of my questions with him. But he knows how to create late separation. He's athletic enough to be able to create that separation naturally, but he also does a really good job late in routes of just getting himself open. If he has to do a little shove, if he has to do that little twitch, little adjustment in his route and kind of wall off the defender, he does seem to do a pretty good job at doing that. I really like that he had late hands, and late hands mean like he doesn't toss them up as the ball's coming. So it gives the defender less time to be able to react to the ball and swat it down. And he did a great job of just flashing the hands late as the ball was getting there. It just shows that he has that natural like ball tracking ability and comfort. He is very comfortable catching the ball. And in a receiver, that's something I like. Like there are some guys even higher on this list that have a tendency to do a little hop when they catch, and that stuff bugs me a lot. But I'm still betting on the upside of them players. Even though I like that he knew how to create late separation, I felt like his routes were inconsistent at times. And I felt like in some moments, not to say he wasn't giving it his all, but like if he wasn't going to be a top option, he didn't always, it felt like or look like, go as hard as he could to create separation and maybe make himself that third option. And the thing is, I don't know Ole Miss's offense, like how often they really want you to get to that third option. So you know what? Maybe he got away with that, but you're not going to be able to do that in the NFL. And that's just something I noticed on tape. And I also noticed that despite him getting the late separation, he lacked consistent separation, which kind of tied into the last issue I just talked about. And I just felt at times he was easily covered. And like, if he felt like he wasn't getting himself open, he would quit sometimes. And I didn't like, not quit. Like, it sounds horrible to say that. It almost felt like he would quit on a route or just be like, I'm not winning this one and just accept that he's covered, as to where some other guys that are ahead of him on this list, I felt worked harder to try to still uncover themselves and just give a window for their quarterback. As much as I like dribbling, like that's something that can't happen in the NFL, but he just has a lot of natural ability that you love to see in a top prospect and somebody who can break out, plus the size and speed. I hate saying this for a guy I have a third round grade on, but I could see him developing to being a top pass catching option for a team. I see that type of upside, and most likely he's not going to reach that. But with the athleticism and the fact that he showed the flashes that I really, really liked, and I know you're supposed to just grade to the flashes, but he gave me hesitation on going crazy with him and going super high on the flashes. But I could see him being a low end number one receiver. And I don't mean like, oh, he's that true X number one. I mean like he's one of the top 32 receivers that you're willing to feed the ball to a little bit heavier. So there's some inconsistency there that I want to see cleaned up. But overall, man, he's a really exciting player that I'm glad I got to because I hadn't watched him. And I'm glad I got to him and I see where the hype came from with him. And if I'm sounding negative on these prospects, I certainly don't mean to. All of these guys I like I said, everybody there is a third round grade here. Like I don't have anybody in my top 15, and heck, I don't know if I have anybody in my top 20 that I think maybe out in my top 20. But I have pretty close to probably 20 guys graded for round 3. And I think there's a lot of good receivers in this class, and I think there's a lot of different flavors, and I think that number 11 here is a good player, but a player that I worry about his upside on, and that's Jeremy Bernard, the wide receiver out of Alabama. He's a 22-year-old. He's 6'1", 206. Good 40 time at 4.48, but I didn't really feel like he played to that speed, if I'm just being honest with you. And the vertical isn't great. And I think that kind of showed the explosion issues that I had. Don't mind me getting over a coughing fit, but I think he's a good player, but I don't know if I see the potential for him to be a great player. And being fully honest, he's a late guy that I moved down my list a little bit. I got working on finishing Ty Simpson's report, and with quarterbacks, I watched 6 tapes at minimum. Even with this, I went back and watched 6, and I just finished Ty Simpson's. And yeah, I felt more convinced that I was right on being a little bit lower on Bernard than I used to be. I had him more. He has a 75 grade, which is bottom of the second round, top of the third round. Like it's technically a late 2, but late 2, early 3 is where I see him going with that grade. And he was a top 50 guy for me. And if I'm being honest with you, I just don't see that type of upside in him. Like he has good hands. He's pretty good at. I like his release package. He beats the press. He's tough. He's physical. Tracks the ball well, and I think he actually runs pretty good routes. It's just I don't think he consistently gets the separation. Which, if he's not already getting it in the SEC, I worry about that translation to the NFL. And having said that, I think he's gonna be like a QB friendly option who's a good player, and I'm not trying to say anything otherwise. I wanna make that clear. Obviously, I have a good grade on him. It's just that's why I had to drop him outside of my top 50 is I just worry about him being more than just that good security blanket for an offense. And he's gonna be a player that's gonna be out there, and you might see him catch 70, 80 balls a year, and it wouldn't shock me. He may do that and not touch 1,000 or barely touch 1,000 in my opinion. I don't see a ton of run after catch with him that I love, but I think he's a really good player. I think any quarterback is going to be able to lean on him, and I think he'll be a chain mover, which is a really good asset to have in an offense. Now, talking about our number 10 guy, he's somebody who I think's like that, but just a little bit more dynamic, which is why he dropped or got moved ahead of Bernard actually, and that's Antonio Williams, the receiver out of Clemson. He's a little bit smaller at 5'11 and a half, 187 pounds. But that 40 time, 4.41, 10-yard split, 155, 39 and a half inch vertical, the 10-4 broad jump. He may not be the twitchiest guy and the most creative guy after the catch. And I do think, of course, press is going to struggle, mess him up a little bit. And he does have some drops in contested catch situations. But I think him and Bernard are both likely going to be best in the slot and as that chain mover, QB comfort type receiver. I just think he's a little bit more dynamic and he'll get you more after the catch because of his extra athleticism. He seems to have good hands and he uses his hands and he reaches out and catches the ball. He's a good crisp route runner. And I noticed, which is, he drifts the open areas on the field, making him QB friendly. I felt I consistently seen him adjusting his route. He runs a curl and some guys run a curl and stand there. Some guys run a curl and drift the wrong way and kind of drift in the coverage. Or, he consistently had that good spatial awareness to feel like, okay, there's a little bit of an opening here. If I drift, the quarterback can get me the ball. And it gave Klubnik an option. And then, like I said, he may not be the shiftiest guy, but you get the ball in his hands and he's moving. He has enough speed and enough ability to be able to get you a good amount of yards after catch. I really like Antonio Williams. I think he's a little bit more dynamic than Jeremy Bernard, and that's why he ended up being ahead of him on this list for me. Both of them are kind of similar mold players, in my opinion. I just think Williams is a little bit better. And I've, like I said, bottom of the second round grade on him, but round 2 to 3 is where I expect him to go. Next guy on the list, we got at number 9 is Malachi Fields, the wide receiver out of Notre Dame. He's 6'4 and a half, 218 pounds. He's that true X receiver vibe. Like he's exactly what you're looking for. Prototype, 32 and a half inch hand or arms, 9-inch hands are a little small, which was odd. And normally when you see this size, I was expecting 10-inch mitts on him. Found it odd. 40 time, not great. 4.61. That's why he's not higher in the draft. Good vertical, good broad jump. Three cone was actually pretty good, which impressed me. But he's also going to be 24 years old. He has a July birthday, so he'll be 24 when the season starts. And that does worry me a little bit, but I have a 75.5. Same idea, late 2, early 3. I think we'll start with the negatives and then we'll get to the positives and what I like about him. Speed. He doesn't have great speed. He does not create just natural separation with his athleticism. I don't like his effort as a blocker at times, and I just don't think he's very good at it, especially at his current size. And his route running, kind of limited, needs some development. And truthfully, I don't know how much upside he has there. Like, I think there are certain routes he's going to be able to run well. I just don't know that he's ever going to be able to run a full, obviously not a full route tree, but I think at his size, he's going to be a little limited in what you would like to see a player his size run in his routes. But the thing is, he's 6'4 and a half. Love that about him. He tracks the ball well. He has strong hands. He catches, it felt like everything in the tapes I watched. I know he had some drops, but I really thought he had strong, good, natural hands. I think in traffic, he does a really good job of being able to work himself through, get open, make the strong contested catch. If guys are up on him on press, he can beat them. He has a good release package. I think he has enough strength, and I think he can get vertical on you, which is something that 4.61 speed would make you question. But the long strides and the comfort working through traffic and just being able to fight and get them openings is the reason why I think he'll be able to do it. Now, he may be your prototypical X, but he's not going to be the X you want to run your offense through. He's he's a good player who, you don't want to be your top receiving option, but I think he can fill that role in an offense. And I think he'd be a really good player, man. I liked him coming out of Virginia when he transferred last year. I talked about it in my preview for college football last year that I thought he was a big get for Notre Dame. I continue to feel that way about him. He's probably not, like I said, going to be the number one option, but I just feel like he's going to be able to go out there, fill that role for you as the X receiver and just be really effective, make some big plays for you, make some tough catches for you, and win in them contested areas of the field, which is what you like. He does have more to grow. And the age kind of gives me some pause on the lack of the top tier deep speed. I just think he's a good receiver, and I see enough in him that I would be comfortable taking him late day or late round 2. I feel pretty confident in my grade on him. The next couple guys on my list, though, certainly are going to be projections. And the first one we're going to talk about at number 8 here is Chris Bell. He has a 79.5 grade. That's a solid second round grade. I know that that's a projection, and honestly, I'm willing to bet on him. His size, his speed just really impressed me. I think Chris Bell is a phenomenal player. He's 22 or going to be 22 before the season starts. I don't have any testing because of the injuries, but he had 31 and 7/8 inch arms and 10-inch hands. And his official height, let me find that real quick. I forgot to write it down in my notes here. 6'2", 222 pounds at the combine. I think maybe early in his career, you're going to have to manufacture touches for him. Like, he needs to really develop as a route runner. He's going to be slowed by the ACL. His route running, like I said, it needs a lot of work, which is going to really limit his year one impact, which is why I could see him slipping to the third round, despite me having a second round grade on him. This is one of them where the range adjusts because of the fact that he has an injury. My grade's higher on him than where he will likely go. Wouldn't shock me if he's a third round guy because of the injury, but I really like him. He's also one of them classic receivers that I don't know why teams do this in college. I know they do when they use tempo a lot, like Tennessee, but he plays one side of the field. And I don't like that about him. It limits his development, and it just continues to show why, or, doesn't allow him to develop his full repertoire, and it makes it to where he's going to be raw entering the NFL. And you have to question it because there's a track record of players that are like that, just not panning out in the NFL. But I see athleticism in him that is rare. I see size that's really nice and really rare to see with that level of athleticism. I think he's physical. I think even though he was raw, he was pretty good versus zone, like on them crossers and stuff, being able to adjust his routes and get an opening for Miller Moss to get him the ball, despite the fact that Moss wasn't very good. But, he just didn't run a lot of routes is my problem. He's a developmental guy, and I know that, but I'm high on him, and I see the upside. I get why people say, like, A.J. Brown's his comp. I do think A.J. Brown was better probably coming out than him, but I can see a world where he gets there. He just has a long way to go, and you're gonna have to be patient. Like I said, second round grade probably won't go till the third round, but that's not gonna affect my rankings. I do knock him a little bit with injuries and stuff, but I don't have the info teams have. And a lot of these, like my big boards and my rankings, are not team specific. For certain teams, Chris Bell would be lower than others. A loaded playoff style team, I'd be more willing to take him in the second round and aim for the future. Because if you already have the guys for now in a good room, you'll be able to bring him in, bring him along slowly, develop him, and then let him take over, say, next year or a role. But for some other teams, you don't have that luxury. You need players now. So he's one of them guys that has a wide variance of range, but my grade says middle of the second round. Now, the next guy on this list is like a top 40 guy for me, probably. He has an 80 grade, and that's Chris Brazzell, the second out of Tennessee. He's a 22-year-old. At the start of the season, he'll be 23 during the year. But he's 6'4", 198 pounds. He has long arms, small hands again, but a elite 40 time at that size at 4.37. He's also going to be a guy that only played one side of the ball. That's why I mentioned Tennessee directly already. He's in a gimmick offense, man. Tennessee's offense is like the worst thing to watch and try to project to the NFL. And it's led to a lot of people kind of being out on Brazel, in my opinion, because every other Tennessee receivers failed. And I understand that, but I think they're scouting the helmet. If I'm being honest with you, I think the fact that Tennessee has sucked at producing receivers is making them go, he can't be good either. He's a part of the gimmick. This dude has rare side speeds, size and speed combination. He has the ability to bend his hips and get down in breaks and actually run routes. Like, I see a lot of upside in Chris Brazzle. And I'll be the first to admit, he's raw. He's going to need to develop because of that stupid Tennessee offense. Age isn't ideal for that. 22 to start the season, but he turns 23 during the year. I think he can do it. And I think he is the exact type of guy you would want to develop. And although he's never going to be like the strongest, most physical guy, he is kind of slender. I don't think he'll add a ton more weight. Like, you can kind of look at him in pictures and stuff, and he just doesn't have the build to be a big mass guy. He's kind of gonna be a little bit leaner and a little bit thinner. I just think that with his speed is how he's going to be able to win. The ability that despite being 6'4", he can sink his hips, come back to the ball, and it opens up the route tree for future growth. I already think he has good hands. I think he can change direction well, like I said, with the sinking of his hips. I also think that the catch and traffic's really nice on him. I know that Georgia tape might be living rent free in my head when it comes to this evaluation, but I seen him beat Dalen Everett multiple times on that tape. And Dalen Everett's not a top tier prospect, but he's also not a bum. I think Brazel has the upside to be a number one receiver in this league. I just don't know if he'll ever get there. And that's the problem. The thing is, like I said, it all comes down to that Tennessee offense. And it's not an offense that's good for projecting players, but he's a good player that I'm willing to bet on. He's raw. He's going to take time. I'd be comfortable taking him inside of the top 50. My grade kind of says like 40-ish is where I have him going with his grade, but I like him and I think he's a good player. It's just he's a projection. You're going to have to be patient with him to get him there. Now, moving on to number 6 is KC Concepcion, the wide receiver from Texas A&M. 6 foot, 196 pounds. I don't have a 40 time or anything on him from the combine. I do have the beast, but I don't have it pulled up in front of me, so I can't tell you what he ran. If he, at his pro day and stuff, if he ran. But he's a younger guy. He's 21 years old. He's going to be 22 during the year. He's a guy that I have a late round 1, early round 2 grade on. He falls into the technically top of the second round category with an 81.5. But KC Concepcion developed. And that is something I like to see. I didn't love his role at NC State. He was a guy that I found exciting and explosive, but I just didn't think it was sustainable for like the NFL to play that way. And I do think he did a good job at Texas A&M of advancing and developing as the season went along, and he did get better. And I understand that's why people are really high on him, but I do struggle with getting the drops out of my head. He had an easy touchdown. I forget what game it was. It might have been, I can't remember. Let me look and see if I put it in my notes. But he had a game where he had an easy touchdown, nobody around him, and he just dropped it. And stuff like that bugs me. Might have been Texas or South Carolina. I can't remember. It was one of the two of them games, though. I do know that. It just bugs me. Like, drops bug me. The thing is, he's the type of player, though, that you're going to be able to live with some drops because he's explosive. And I heard something recently about, like, judging drops or, like, holding drops against the player is a good way to miss on good players. I forget where I heard it, but it was something along them lines. And I understand, like, you can weigh it too much. And in some ways, maybe I have, but I think he's still developing as a route runner, which is why he's number 6 and probably not number 5 or 4 on this list. I think you've seen the improvement and you've seen him get better as the year went along this year, but I don't think he's quite ready yet, fully there. And I certainly can't get as high as some of these people are on him. But he's twitchy, he's fast, he has inside out versatility, in my opinion. Sure, playing him in the slot makes a ton of sense, but I actually think with his speed and his ability, he'll be able to win on the outside in the NFL. And I did like that when Marcel Reed was scrambling, he would do a good job of making himself available. Like, he would drift to openings, he would continue to move, he would try to go deep, he'd throw his hand up. He kept working, which is something that I really like to see. And he had a good feel of finding that little area and giving him an option. It did impress me quite a bit and gave me a lot of hope. I think his release package needs work. He's just a guy you wanna get the ball in his hands and let him go, and he's a guy that I'm not negative. Like I said, I would take him late 1, early 2. My grade's technically, like, right around, like I said, it's just inside of the top 40, and I really like him. I think he's a great player. I just don't know. I guess my problem is I don't know if I can get to where some people are taking him inside the top 20. I don't think I can get there with him. I think there's still a lot of growth and a lot of projection there and just too many inconsistencies to take him that high. And I do want to remind you, if you're still here, consider hitting that like button and consider subscribing to the channel. We're going to have more draft stuff coming out post draft. We're going to rank everybody's we're going to grade everybody's draft class. I probably won't post a video, but I'm always going to, if you go to the website that's down in the description, you'll be able to check out my top rankings, my full big board as I continue to watch this class. Like I said, I'm behind. So we're going to go through and finish that up in the month of May when I normally take time off from scouting. And we're going to get the full big board done this year. And we're going to grade the draft classes. If you want to see any more info and read my report on these players, head over to that website. The report's basically covered up, but you'll be able to read exactly how I feel about these guys, and you'll be able to see like the grade scale and kind of what it means. So as we head into our top 5 here, number 5 on the list is Omar Cooper Jr. out of Indiana. I'm recording this here the next morning, but Omar Cooper is a player that I think is going to be really good. He has an 82.5 grade for me, which is bottom of round 1, top of round 2, technically in like the 30s if you look at it. But I think he's gonna be a good player in the NFL. I just have a lot of questions about him, which is why I'm not as high on him as everybody else. I couldn't get into having him in top 20. I just don't trust people that are in their 4th year in college before they finally break out, and honestly, that's what happened with him. Most of his production came as a senior or junior this year, junior redshirt technically, and I don't know, man. That stuff just worries me, and usually it's a red flag. He is somebody that actually came up through Indiana, like, he didn't come in with Curt Cignetti, so that's definitely interesting, and maybe that's part of it. He had to earn the trust of Coach Sig, I don't know. He's a good player who has run after catchability. I think he's a good athlete. He showed up in big time moments, which is something I absolutely loved about him. I do think his route tree needs some work, though. I do think he's gonna struggle a little bit more to separate in the NFL than what he did in college. Like, he needs refinement, but also I just don't think he has a ton of wiggle in his game. Like, I know he had a high force missed tackle rate, which is another thing people absolutely love about him. I don't know, just when I watched his film, I just didn't feel like it was gonna translate as well to the NFL, and I didn't notice that force missed tackle and his run after catch ability as much in his actual route running. Like, I don't think he has a ton of wiggle. I think he's a little bit more physical, and at his size, I just don't think that's gonna translate to the NFL as easily. But I think he's gonna be a great slot option in the NFL. Some people think he could work outside, and I can't say he won't be able to, but he played most of his career snaps in the slot in college, and that's where he looked at his best. I know he's explosive, and I know he's gonna be able to create big plays for a team. I see the hype getting inside of the top 20, and I don't wanna sound hard, but I just don't think that I can get that high on Omar Cooper Jr. at this point in time. Even though I think he's a great player, I just think that's a little bit too high for me. That's really it when it comes down to him. Let's move on here to our number 4 guy on the list, and that's Denzel Boston out of Washington. He has an 83 grade, which is close to a true first round grade for me. He's going to be probably a top 20 prospect in this class or pretty close to it. I'm really high on Denzel Boston. I know a lot of people are low on him because of the fact that he's a big X receiver who doesn't separate in traditional ways. And it's the same problem Tataroa McMillan ran into last year with people. I don't think Boston is as athletic as McMillan or as refined as McMillan when it comes to his route running, which is why I'm not as high on him as what I was McMillan last year. But at 6'4", 212 pounds with 32-inch arms, he has a big wingspan, height and the length you like, and he uses it. He's tough, he's physical in his routes. He's 22 years old. Now, as I said, he didn't run a 40, so you don't know how fast he is. And honestly, he doesn't look super fast on tape, but I see enough from him on tape to think that he will be able to win in the NFL. And honestly, he's never going to run away from people anyway, and it takes more than that to win, especially as a physical X receiver. Like, maybe he doesn't play exactly the same way, but I see a guy like Cortland Sutton in him, and I think that Sutton was a really good player at the top of his game, and I just think that Boston will be able to come in, contribute, play that role, and be very effective for you and get you that 1,000 yards at least a couple times. Maybe he's not gonna be an all-pro type player, but I just think he's gonna consistently be a strong, good X receiver in the NFL. Honestly, I think he already runs an NFL route tree. I think he did a good job creating separation, and his quarterback, who he's an exciting college quarterback, but as far as an NFL prospect goes, he's not an NFL prospect because he wouldn't pull the trigger when Boston was open on NFL style throws. Like, he was afraid to throw the ball into the tighter windows. And at the end of the day, I think if Boston played with a better college quarterback, you'd have seen better stats out of him. And I think people could understand how he could be a better player. He was just really good at getting late separation, which is what you need to do if you're not like an athletic freak. And it's something I've seen McMillan do quite a bit last year. And it's something that I see Boston doing. And I think he's going to be a good player. I do worry that against some of the bigger competitions, like what was it, the Ohio State game, he kind of struggled in. I think he only had like 2 or 3 catches in that game. But again, I seen where Williams was facing pressure and he was afraid to throw the ball into windows that I thought Boston was open for. I really think that he's going to be a valuable player in the NFL. I'm not as low as what everybody else is on Denzel Boston. And I do believe he has a bright future ahead of him. And I would take him probably right around the 20s. I just don't think there's a team in that area that needs an exact player like his style just inside of the top 20, or I'd be comfortable with him going there as well. Now, moving into our top 3 guys here, these guys are all true first round talents, in my opinion. And you can probably guess who they are. This isn't really any hot takes in here. I don't have Omar Cooper like some people. I don't have KC Concepcion like some people. My number 3 guy, though, is going to be Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State. He would be my number 1 receiver if it wasn't for the injuries. Like, I get people question his toughness because he'll go down, he'll run out of bounds, and, he's dealt with a lot of injuries in his career so far. But the dude is just clearly the best receiver right now, and he has the most upside in this class. It's just whether he can stay healthy. So he has an 89 grade. And what an 89 grade means for me is he's a true boom bust player. That means that it's the same type of grade I would have given Anthony Richardson coming out, where I've seen the upside, but you just don't know if he's going to be able to reach it. Now, Tyson's different than Richardson. Tyson gets that grade strictly because of the fact of the injuries. If I didn't have so much faith in him, he wouldn't have gotten the boom bust grade and he could have been lower on this list. But I truly believe he has like a consistent Pro Bowl, even maybe all pro style, like potential here in his game. I think that it just comes down to health. That's really what it comes down to, is whether he can be healthy or not. I think Tyson's just one of them guys that when you watch him play, you can see the NFL in him. It's just like I said, he blew out his knee early in his career, ACL, MCL, PCL. He's had a collarbone, he had a hamstring. It's just every time you turned around, he's hurt. You got to take that into consideration. And ultimately, that's why he went from being number 1 on my list with what would have been a 94 grade, and he would have been a clear number 1 on my list, down to just an 89 because injuries, it really makes you worry. As a player, he gets great separation. I think he has excellent run after catch ability, inside out flexibility. He's a great athlete, in my opinion. From what I can tell, he has twitch, which is nice for his size. And I think he tracks the ball well, good hands. He just has a lot of things to like about him. It's whether he can stay healthy or not. And we're going to move on now to number 2 on our list, and that's going to be Carnell Tate, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. I don't have him at number 1. And in some ways, this is a grade I don't love because I view him as more of a high floor, low ceiling player. And I just think that he has a high enough floor where I gave him a true first round grade. He has a 90, and that means I expect him to come in and contribute in year 1 and be a starter for a team. I just don't know that he'll ever get past being a number 2, above a number 2 option for an offense, and I don't think he's dynamic enough for you to really lean into him, run an offense through him, even if it's not in a traditional sense, like, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I just don't think that he's a guy you're going to be able to do that with. And everybody talks about he didn't do it at Ohio State. It's not that he didn't do it at Ohio State. It's that at Ohio State, I just didn't think he showed me that level of production and winning ability on the field. Like, he has the 4.53 speed. Honestly, that's fine. It's not elite, but it's fine. Great hands, like a hand size at 10 and a quarter. He's 6'2, only 192 pounds. He plays like a bigger physical guy, but he's actually kind of thin, which shocked me a little bit there. I don't know that I would take him inside of the top 10. Maybe I can see it because he's a receiver and teams need receivers. But to me, I wouldn't take him inside of the top 5. Maybe Cleveland at 6, but I don't know. To me, do you want to pair Jerry Judy with another guy that I think could be kind of like Jerry Judy? Where not the same style players, but
the type of player that you always want more out of based on draft position and like, oh, you want him to be a number one, but the reality is he's just not. I kind of feel like that's Carnell Tate. So I don't love the fit at number 6, but he's a good player. I don't want to be negative on him. I just think that kind of what you see is what you get. And what you see is a really good player. He's kind of already, he came from Ohio State. And I know it's stupid to scout the helmet. And I already talked about that earlier. But Ohio State, at the end of the day, they get their receivers ready. He's kind of a pro receiver right now. He looks good in his route running. He just doesn't really win underneath, which is something I don't love about him. He does get separation down the field. I think that's a little bit more savvy in his route running, and that shows up with being at Ohio State. Like he's good at pacing and tempoing his routes a little bit already and creating that separation based off of that as opposed to his natural athleticism because he's not going to win with that. He's just a savvy guy who's smart. He has good, strong hands. I loved his effort as a blocker, and I think he did a good job finding openings when they were available and drifting to create them openings to get a window for his quarterback. So I like Carnell Tate. Like I said, I just don't think he'll ever be a number one, which is the thing. I think Jordan Tyson to me is the only guy that I think could be a true number one, like top type of guy, but he's hurt and you just can't do that. So in a normal class, maybe I wouldn't be this high on Carnell Tate, but I really like him. I think he's a pretty safe prospect. Some of that is probably scouting the helmet, even though I'm telling myself it's not. The reality is it might be. I like him though. He's just not number one for me. Number one for me is going to be Makai Lemon, the wide receiver out of USC. Listen, I know he doesn't have ideal size, 5'11", 191. I know that he didn't test his 40, and I do think that that's going to be a bit of a question. How fast truly is Makai Lemon? He doesn't win deep, and that's fine. That's not the type of player he is. He's a slot player who's twitchy. He gets easy separation, great releases, in my opinion. He's catching traffic. He's tough as heck, and he comes down with the ball. He fights through contact. He's willing to go across the middle and get them wins. He floats and drifts and gets in lane for his quarterback, which I really like. I just see a player that's going to translate to the NFL. And I know slots typically are not considered like a high value position or a high value player because they're relatively easily replaceable in the eyes of a lot of people. The thing is, to me, I just don't view it that way with Makai Lemon. I personally think that I think you're going to be able to not run your offense through him, but I think I wouldn't be shocked if he's a top pass catching option for a team. Like, obviously, he's not that true outside guy winning outside of the numbers, but I think you can run an unconventional offense with him and feed him a ton of targets, and he's gonna get you the everything you need. He's gonna get you the first downs. He's gonna keep the chain moving. He's gonna be able to win. He may not be the explosive guy, and you're probably gonna have to speed him up with a pretty, pair him up with a pretty speedy guy on the outside. And I know a lot of people go to Amon-Ra St. Brown, but to be honest with you, he's kind of the prototype. And I think St. Brown, everybody's like, oh yeah, but he was, where he was picked. I just think you have to look at that and realize that sometimes the school of thought is just wrong and outdated. I think that the way offenses run nowadays, obviously, them big X guys are rare, and those are the guys that you want to target because if you can win on or get one of those guys and hit, it's awesome. But I think Lemon's going to be able to move across the lineup. You're going to be able to create quick hitters to him, and he's just going to be a good guy to run your offense through. He's going to keep you moving. It's almost like, to me, I know it's crazy to say this, but to me, he's almost like a running back where you can count on him just getting you some yards. He's going to keep you moving. Yes, you need the explosive element to pair with him just because he's not the most explosive guy, but he is the type of guy I want in my receiving room. And in this class with Jordan Tyson's injury history, I just see Lemon as more consistent than Carnell Tate. I see Lemon having a little bit more potential to possibly reach an all pro level, even though he plays from the slot, and, slot players typically are found a little bit later in the draft. I just choose to believe in my Makai Lemon because watching him, man, I just don't see him not translating. And I see his exact style as being something that is going to be able to contribute early, and he's going to get a lot of targets, man. And I know everybody brings up just like the Rams offense, but honestly, like as a Patriots fan, I'd love to see him in Josh McDaniels' offense, but he'll never get there. He's just the type of guy that you need in an offense, be creative with, move around, run him, just get the ball to him and let him go. He's going to create because of his twitchiness, not because of his speed. Yeah, he's not going to bust a ton of long catches off. But truthfully, how often do you really see that? Which is where I really value him. Like he's going to be able to create that a lot like Omar Cooper, except for I just think Makai Lemon's going to translate a little better. And that's really what it comes down to for me. So Makai Lemon's here at number 1 on the list. If you made it this far, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. If you want to read the full reports that I have covered up, look at my other positions that I have reports on because we're not going to cover them prior to the draft and do all that. Go down to the description. I got a link to the website down below. It's a Google website right now. I'm going to have a true domain coming to it hopefully soon. I don't know exactly when, but we're going to be able to get it connected and you guys will be able to get over there and take a look at all my rankings, update them live. Like I said, as I do a report, I'm automatically uploading it in there. I'm not keeping it hidden and there's no paywalls. So if you guys want to check it out, I already have my top 2 quarterback reports, my tight end reports, top couple tight ends as well done. All the receivers, I have, I think, 23 guys written up right now. A couple of them are guys, 24 guys written up right now. I just looked. A couple of them are guys that probably won't get drafted that I watched early in the year and I just touched up game film real quick because they were easy guys to kind of, I like to start watching players that I know are not great per se or thought of highly. So that way I can kind of calibrate my eyes to see the better players. And I try to watch a guy from last year that I really liked, and then a guy from last year that I wasn't so high on. And then I'll come into this class and I'll watch a guy that's lower ranked, which I did. I watched 2 guys that they're not going to get drafted, but I had quick cut ups on them that were available. So I didn't have to watch and go through the entire offense. So, good news with cut ups, you can get through them in 10, 15 minutes. So I was able to watch all the cut ups for 2 guys just to get my eyes calibrated. And then I got into it. But we have 24 or 23 guys right now that you're able to go look at full reports on for receivers. Like I said, got Fernando Mendoza, Ty Simpson. I might do a video on them prior to the draft. I'm gonna have a mock draft that I put up there. Hopefully not the day of the draft. I'm hoping to have it out Wednesday, but it might be out Thursday morning prior to the draft. That's it though. I want to thank you for watching. Have a great day. Catch you guys later. I'm out.